Hello, this is David Taylor Hughes from the Soundimageplus blog, and today I'm going to be having a look at the Olympus Air. On one end you've got the smartphone holder, there it is, and on the other end you've got a standard micro four thirds lens mount. Now in order to get it going right from scratch, you've actually got to insert a micro SD card. There's no internal memory, and there's no card provided, so you've basically got to get a card and install it yourself. As you can see, the slot's not terribly accessible, and the only way I can actually get the micro SD card in or out is use the nail of my little finger. Not particularly user friendly, as you might imagine. And then of course you've got to put the whole thing back together again. So here it is, and I'm going to attach a lens to it. In this case it's the Panasonic 15mm f1.7, and there it is, the camera plus the lens. You can actually just press the shutter button, which I'm going to do now, and that actually takes pictures. Obviously that's not incredibly useful because you can't actually see what you're getting. So what you need to do is actually fit it up with either a smartphone or a tablet, which works just as well. I use mine with my iPads and it works very well. So here's the smartphone, well, not actually a smartphone, it's actually an iPod Touch that I use with it. And the first thing I've got to do is set up the Wi-Fi connection. As you can see, up comes there's the Air connection, and if I select that, then the two things are actually paired up. This is done via Bluetooth. Open up the app, which, as I've written before on a previous piece, you can only actually get from the Japan and US App Store sites, because those are the only countries that sell it. Once the app's up, there I'm just having a look at the pictures I've already got, pictures and videos I've already got stored on the camera. There are some camera settings here that you can go into, some general ones including formatting the SD card, etc. This is not really the place to do the things that actually set the camera up in terms of operation. That's actually on the app itself, which I'll show you when I open that up. So you press that mode dial, and that connects up with the camera, and there you go. The camera doesn't, the smartphone doesn't have to be attached to the camera attachment. You can use it separately if you want. As you can see, I'm moving the camera around, and the picture's moving accordingly. But what I'm going to do here is, just there's the program, aperture, shutter, manual and video selectors, which run down the bottom. There are all sorts of controls on the main screen, so I'll slot it into the smartphone holder. A word of warning here: it doesn't work with every size smartphone. There's apparently a small size which fits something like the iPod Touch and some of the smaller iPhones. But apparently when I wrote a post earlier, people were saying that their smartphone doesn't actually fit into the holder, so it's a good idea to check that. It's got touchscreen autofocus, which you can move around within a certain you've got a certain area you can move around. You can't move it everywhere on the screen, and you press the greyed out button on the side, and that actually takes the shot. It's not the fastest, I have to say, in terms of both autofocusing and actually writing the image to the card. It does take a while, and if you're used to some of the current micro four thirds whiz-bang autofocus systems, then this isn't one of those. Here's something interesting. It will take adapters, obviously, and here I've got my Canon full frame 40mm lens, pancake lens, and my Kip-on autofocus adapter. And there you are. You can see it's autofocusing. I'm taking the picture, and there's the playback. Again, another word of warning: this adapter is very quick and very reliable on my GX8, but as you can see here, it's hunting around quite dramatically. So the autofocus on the Air is not particularly the best that you can get. My suspicion is there's an awful lot of Olympus pen technology in this thing, rather than the latest OMD Mark II and EM1 technology. Um, and you are also, of course, handicapped by how good your smartphone is, how good the touchscreen facility is. So it is worth bearing in mind that the Olympus Air, to a large extent, depends on some of the peripherals that you're actually working with. Your screen or your tablet, how good they are, whether they fit, um, how it works in practice. So here we are. This is a Metabone speed booster, which is going to actually widen the lens up and give me an extra stop. And I've got my monster Canon 24 to 105mm zoom on it. There you are. Small, pocketable, just exactly what you want for a unobtrusive picture taking. But it does work. And the point is that the Air will take all sorts of lenses. And as I'm going to be talking about later, you don't actually have to use it in this handheld smartphone mode. It doesn't necessarily have to be like that. The way that I use it is in fact completely different. Another little irritation, basically, when you change a lens or whatever, the whole thing disengages, and you have to start the whole thing from scratch. So I'm actually going back here and starting again, setting up the Wi-Fi connection between the two, and opening the app up again. There we go. And hopefully now we're in business, or at least we will be when I take the lens cap off. Just incidentally, that little circle, that's actually quite useful. You can set it up to have a that basically works out, you move that around to get the exposure you want. You've got two little icons on the screen. One's a green circle and one's a green square. The green square is for autofocus, and the circle is for getting the exposure. So basically, if you stick it over something that's light, it will darken up. If you put it over something dark, the exposure will lighten up. It's handy for getting the exposure exactly spot on, exactly how you want it, and it's a rather nice visual way of doing it. I like it very much. I think it actually sort of works very well if you are using it in this handheld mode. Here I am desperately trying to take a picture of the orchid that's on my desk. I just about achieved it. So there it is. As I think I'm trying to say, it is actually very useful. I do like using it, but there are some slowish operational modes that go with it. But finally, here's a selection of various lenses that I've got on it, and this is how I really like to use it. Basically set up on a tripod when I've got the time to consider what I'm doing, the composition, etc. Time to change my lenses, get the autofocus right, rather than sort of walk around trying to shoot on the hoof pictures with sort of instant autofocus. There are various lenses I've got attached here. There are Nikons, Canons, Micro Four Thirds lenses, adapters, native lenses, whatever. As you can see, that's the Olympus 75mm f1.8. But here's where I would use it primarily. As I've written before, often I do a lot of property shoots, and actually setting this up as I've got it here with the Olympus 7-14 wide angle zoom on it, and using an iPad to monitor the picture. Obviously, as you can imagine, I can show the client the kind of pictures that I'm shooting. They can decide, oh well, I'd rather like this, or can you do it this way? And it's a very handy thing for doing something like that. So that's where I personally find it really useful. Whether or not you would find it as useful, who knows?